Okay, good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday, so we're going to learn the laws of Shavuot, just laws and customs of Shavuot, and then we'll probably go to Tanya, which is connected also to Shavuot, so it's we're learning. Anyway, today was Rosh Chodesh. Chabad custom is that we don't take Tachnun from the beginning of the month of Sivan through the 12th day of Sivan. The reason for that is Rosh Chodesh, obviously, we don't say Tachnun. Tonight and tomorrow, which is Bais Din, 2nd of Sivan, it's called in the Torah, in the Bais Din, it's the day of identification that God identified us, as it says on the 2nd day of Sivan. Hashem said to us, "Va'atem tiyuli mamlechas kohanim v'goy kodesh." You will be to me mamlechas kohanim, a nation, a kingdom, a priesthood, and a holy nation. So because Hashem identified the Jews as Hashem's kings and kohanim, so therefore we don't say Tachnun and Yom HaMiyuchas. Just in passing, it's very interesting. You know, the Arizal says that every neshama has to come down again and again. The reincarnation is called Gilgul. Every neshama needs to come down until it learns all parts of Torah and all keeps all mitzvahs. Now, there's certain mitzvahs that, let's say, apply only in the Beis Hamikdash. So those neshamas in those generations kept them. But there's a few mitzvahs, like the mitzvahs of a king. In other places, it says also of a Kohen. I mean, there's one king per generation. You can't have so many people. How do all these people fulfill the mitzvah of a king? They can't come down again as a king. There's only one king. You can't have 1,000, 10,000 kings. So the answer is that the king, the Arizal writes, the kings fulfill the people's obligation for them. When the king keeps his kingly mitzvahs, which are a lot, he fulfills all the neshamas of all the generations. And the same thing with the Kohen is brought down. That when Kohanim, not everybody could come down to be Kohanim. So when the Kohanim fulfill everybody's obligation of the mitzvahs of a Kohen. But the question is, how do they have the ability to fulfill us with their mitzvahs if we have no connection to being a king or a Kohen? So the answer is we do, because Hashem said to every single Jew on Bais Din, "Va'atem tiyuli mamlechas kohanim." You're going to be mamlechas, means kingdom. That's a melech. And kohanim is all the mitzvahs of kohen. So every Jew, in essence, is a melech and a kohen, and therefore the king and the kohanim can make us fulfill our obligations as far as keeping all the 613 mitzvahs. So Rosh Chodesh we don't say Tachnun. The 2nd day of Sivan we don't say Tachnun. Then we have the three, what's called Shlosheh Simei Hagbolah, the 3 preparatory days for the preparation of Shavuot, which is the preparation for the Yom Tov. Then we have the 2 days Shavuot. That's already through the 7th day. Now, the time, why, by the way, only Chabad does it. Everybody doesn't say Tachnun on the 8th day, which is the Isru Chag, the day right after Shavuot. But Chabad and a lot of others don't say Tachnun for 12 days. Why not? Because in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, everybody had to bring korbanos on the Yom Tov. They had to bring sacrifices. It was a biblical obligation for all the male Jews to go up to the Beis Hamikdash, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, and to bring a korban chatos, shlomim, a peace offering and a burnt offering. So how did everybody have time to do it in one day? So Pesach and Shavuos, they had 7 days to do it. Pesach and Sukkot, Pesach and Sukkot, they had 7 days to do it. But Shavuos is only 1 day. So the Gemara says they were given halachically 7 days, starting from Shavuos, the 6th day. They were given 7 days for everybody to be able to bring the sacrifices. So even though it's not really a chag, but the fact that they were able to complete the sacrifices that they had to bring to the duration of Sukkot, of Shavuos, so therefore we don't see Tachnun for all those days. Okay, that's number 1. As far as it says in halacha that Erev Shavuos you should give extra tzedakah, that the Rebbe always explained when there's 2 days Yom Tiv, So you can't give tzedakah on Yom Tov. So Erev Yom Tov, you should give extra for the two, besides for the day of Erev Yom Tov. But by candlelighting, you should give 2 days worth of tzedakah for both days of Yom Tov. So it says, Shavuos is the time, Erev Shavuos is the time to give a lot of people tzedakah. Now, the night of Shavuos, which this year is Sunday night, we have to daven Ma'ariv late, and we cannot make Kiddush before nightfall. Ma'ariv has to be, you have to wait until nightfall. Kiddush, you have to wait until nightfall. Why? And again, in LA times, candle lighting is 7:41, Shkia is about 8 o'clock. You cannot daven Ma'ariv or make Kiddush before 8:30, 8:35. You can't. Why? Because the Torah says we're just finishing counting the Omer that day. And the Torah says, to Mimais Tihiyana, they have to be complete days. If you take away from the 49th day by bringing Shavuos in early, then the days would not going to be complete because you're taking it part of the day off for Shavuos. So therefore, the din is you have to daven Ma'ariv late, the Alter Rebbe holds, and you have to make Kiddush not before nightfall. Now, by candle lighting is lahadrik ner shel Yom Tov and Shechianu. Both nights of Shavuos, we make Shechianu both by candle lighting and by Kiddush. Again, women, married couples, so the woman makes the Shechianu a candle lighting, the man makes it a Kiddush. If a woman lives alone and she's doing both candle lighting and Kiddush, the custom is the women, you don't make it twice. So she makes a Shechianu at candle lighting. If a man lives alone and he's doing Kiddush and candle lighting, the man makes the Shechianu at Kiddush. That's the custom. Now, so Yom Tov, let's just go in the order of the evening. It's a very important thing to stay up the night of, for men. Women don't have that obligation. Men have an obligation to stay up the whole night, the first night of Shavuos. By the way, some people used to stay up both nights, but 99% of the people stay up the first night until morning. And there's a letter, a note they found from the Mittel Rebbe, the second Rebbe, that said that whoever stays up the night of Shavuos, I guarantee him they're going to merit the crown of Torah. So it's a very important thing to stay up on the night of Shavuos. Now, many people learn, many people have classes, many people say what's called Tikkun Leil Shavuos. Tikkun Leil Shavuos, they say it was composed by the Shalah, maybe not, but they say it was composed by the Shalah Kaddish. It basically it goes through the whole entire scope of Torah. It takes every parsha, the first few psukim and the last few psukim of every single parsha throughout Chumash. Some places have more, like Az Yashir and the Sefer Dibros. Then it goes through all of prophets, Nevi'im, first and last psukim of each prophet, of each book of the 24 books of prophet, of scriptures. Then it goes through the entire Talmud and Mishnah. It's the first and last Mishnah of every tractate. It's a lot. First and last Mishnah of every single tractate. Then you have the mitzvahs, the 613 mitzvahs that we say the night. We say the whole book of Rus at night. There's a lot of things that people say. In Chabad, they're very particular to say Tikkun Leil Shavuos. In many places, there's classes, people in Gemara, whatever they want to learn, which is fine. But there is a custom of staying up a whole night. Now, a person that was staying up a whole night, there's a lot of questions in halacha. Can you make on the Tilas Yadayim? Can you say all the brachas? Can you do all that? Bottom line is, our custom is, we say on the Tilas Yadayim, and we say all the brachas. We say it all. Even though we were up a whole night and we didn't sleep. And men have a minhag that they go right before dawn, they go to the mikveh. Some people table 4 times corresponding with the 4 letters of Hashem's name. And then some people have an early minyan for Shachris, a later minyan for Shachris, and so on. But the Rebbe wanted that all men, women, and children should be participating in listening to the Torah reading of the Ten Commandments. By the way, that doesn't mean you can take out the Torah and just read Aser Sedibris. No, it has to be a whole Torah reading, 5 aliyahs and Haftorah and the works, like in a regular Yom Tov. But as Rebbe wanted, every single man, woman, and child, even a child that's just born, should be there and receive the Torah, because the children, especially with the guarantors of the Torah, that Hashem accepted them as a guarantor, and that's why he gave the Torah to the Jews. Okay, now, there's also a very important custom that we eat dairy on the first day of Shavuot. But I want to emphasize, it says in Shulchan Aruch, even though there's a custom to eat dairy on Yom Tov, but because there's also an obligation, according to many opinions, biblical, on Yom Tov to eat meat, so therefore the Alter Rebbe says you have to be careful not to mix the meat and milk together, and I'll explain what that means. So some people, by the way, only have dairy meals. That's not, there are people that do it, it's brought out in halacha, but the way the Alter Rebbe says, and the way most people say, there is an obligation to eat meat also at each meal on Yom Tov. So the proper way of doing it is as follows. At night, Sunday night, first night of Shavuot, you have a meat meal, regular Yom Tov meal. Shavuot morning, Monday morning, after davening, most people have a custom, they have made kiddush, some people have a big kiddush, they eat cheesecake, they eat blintzes, they eat ice cream, whatever they want. Then they make it after bracha. Okay? Our custom is to wait, and people have different customs, but the Rebbe writes, our custom based on the Zohar is to wait an hour between milk and meat. Even though some people don't wait at all, some people wait a half an hour. According to the Zohar, you have to wait an hour. So our custom in Chabad is, what we do basically, after davening, we make kiddush. We have some people wash and have dairy, or they can just have dairy, cakes and blintzes and all that stuff. And then they make a bracha achrena, they rinse their mouths, they eat something, change the tablecloths, they wait an hour, and then they can have a meat meal. Now, if somebody wants, they can have the meal with dairy, with bread, with challah, and then later in the afternoon, they can have some deli. They don't even have to wash, because they wash, and now they're having meat. They're having meat in the afternoon. They're eating meat, or whenever it is. But the truth is, you need to have meal also, and you need to have a dairy meal on the first day of Yom Tov. Not necessarily a meal. Again, it could be cheesecake, it could be blintzes, it could be ice cream, whatever you want. But you make kiddush, and you have the dairy, and then you rinse your mouth, you eat something, you wait an hour at least, you say after bracha, or if you wash your bench, and then you can eat the meat meal. Now, women are always asking the question, if they have a meat oven and they want to make cheesecake or blintzes in the oven, how do you kasher the oven from meat to dairy to be able to make a cheesecake? Because they have one oven and it's meat and they want to make cheesecake or blintzes, whatever. So the din is as follows. Normally, from meat to dairy and dairy to meat, we don't kasher with hagala, with the hot water method. With libun, meaning direct fire, like it's turning on the oven, so then the world is lenient that we do kasher from milchiks to fleishiks and fleishiks to milk. So the best thing is as follows. If you have an oven a meat oven that's clean. If it's full of meat, you can't make a cheesecake in an oven that's filthy with meat all over the place. If the oven is clean, you don't have to self-clean it. You can turn it on to the highest, which is broil, for an hour. Usually an hour would be the proper amount of time. And after the oven is kashered, like, that's not always the way the kasher can trace the kosher. But here it's different because the milk and the meat is not traced. The meat that you're trying to get out is not traced, so it's easier. So you kasher the oven, you turn it on to broil, which is 550. Leave it on for an hour, and now you can make a cheesecake. When you finish making all the cheesecakes, you want to make it back for meat. Do the same thing again. Leave it on for an hour, 550, and then you can make meat again in it. And you don't have to wait 24 hours. You can do it the same way, the same day, one after another, providing it's food. So that's the story what to do with the oven. Okay, now we mentioned it's very important for everybody to hear the Aseret Dibros, go to shul, listen Aseret Dibros. Another important thing is that from one day Yom Tov to the second day Yom Tov, you're not allowed to do any preparations whatsoever. That means as follows. You cannot wash your dishes after the meal, Shavuos day, to use them for the meal the second night, because you're preparing from one day Yom Tov to the next. You can't set the table from one day after to before nightfall. You can't cook anything. You can't reheat anything. You can't light candles before. So you have to wait, like we said, until, let's say, you hear candle lighting in LA is 7:41. You have to wait basically until 8:40 Monday night to be able to do any preparation whatsoever for the second night of Yom Tov. Because you're not allowed to prepare. The first day is biblical, the second day is rabbinic. You're not allowed to do any preparation whatsoever from one day to another day, and therefore you cannot do any preparations whatsoever. And that's that. Another interesting thing, Shavuot really doesn't have that many unique dinim because it's a regular Yom Tov. It's not Pesach has a lot of laws of chametz and matzah, and Sukkot has lulav and esrog and Sukkot. In fact, even though Pesach is called Chag HaMatzos, in the city of Lubavitch, the Rebbe spoke many sichos about this. In Lubavitch, there was a custom that the Rabbonim that weren't able to go to the Rebbe on a regular Yom Tov because they have to be in the city to Paskin Shilas. On Shavuos, they would go to the Rebbe for Shavuos. Why? Because there's no special halachos of Shavuos that people needed to know. It's a regular Yom Tov, like all other Yom Tov, not like Pesach and Sukkot and all that. In fact, in Lubavitch, they called it Chag HaMatzos. Shavuos was called Chag HaMatzos. Why? The word in Hebrew for Arav is Mora Tzedek, the guide of justice. You know how to live. Tzedek Tidek, like it says about the Sanhedrin. So Rabbonim are called in Torah Meira Tzedek. The Meira Tzedek stands for Matz. The acronym is Matz. So because there are many Rabbonim would come, they would call it Chag HaMatzos, even though that normally refers to Pesach, but they would come. And that's that. Now also, the second day Shavuos, so you can't do any preparation whatsoever. Both nights, you say Shechianu by Kiddush and by candlelight, that we say. Second day Yom Tov is Yisker. Okay? Yisker, by the way, just for the record, if somebody is not able to go to shul, you don't need a minyan to be able to say Yisker. The memorial Yisker that we say on Yom Tov, and the last day of Yom Tov, you really don't need a minyan to have it. So if somebody is stuck home, they can still say Yisker on their own without a minyan. You don't need a minyan for Yisker. There's a lot of dinim. The Ten Commandments should be given to a Rav if he's not a Kohen or a Levi, and the Haftarah should be given to a Chacham, or the Rav gets the Haftarah because it speaks about the throne that Yechezkel saw. When they read the Ten Commandments, the custom is you stand, even though if you're sitting, you stand and you face the person that's reading the Aseret Dibros. That's basically it in the halachos of Shavuos. Again, just the practical dinim of. I think we covered everything. Yeah. Okay. So now I think what we'll do is we'll go to Tanya and we'll learn a little bit extra Tanya today. Because we're learning about, anyway, Yetzias Mitzrayim, which is connected to Shavuos. And I'll tell you why. Because, even before we get into that, when Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu at the burning bush, when you will take the nation out of Egypt, you are going to serve God on this mountain. Because the burning bush was, Hashem met Moshe Rabbeinu at the burning bush was Har Sinai. And Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, you're going to serve. So Pesach was already the beginning of Matan Torah. Because Hashem said, why are you taking him out of Egypt? To serve Hashem on the mountain, to get Torah, to be Makabel the Torah. So therefore, in fact, many commentaries say, it's interesting, they say Pesach is like the first day's Yom Tiv, Shavuos are the last days of Yom Tiv, and Sfiras Ha'omer is like Chol HaMoed. The early codifiers write this. It's a beautiful concept. Pesach is the first days, Shavuos are the last days, and Sfiras Ha'omer, the 7 weeks, are the days of Chol HaMoed between Pesach and Shavuos. So therefore, really, the truth is that Pesach and Shavuos are interconnected. We were taken out in order to serve Hashem at Har Sinai. In fact, the Jews got so excited. The Rebbe always brings this down. This Rano was Rishon at the end of the Gemara Pesachim says that when Hashem told the Jews that when they leave Egypt, 50 days later they're going to get the Torah, they were so excited they started counting the days. That's one of the sources of Sfiras Ha'omer, not in the biblical sense, but in the concept of Sfiras Ha'omer, they started counting the days. And therefore, the Rebbe asks the famous question, so why, we know, we mentioned before, we stay up the night of Shavuot. Why do we stay up the night of Shavuot? Because the Jews, the night before Matan Torah, went to sleep. And the Medrash says a remarkable thing. Shina Shalat Sareva, it was a beautiful, peaceful sleep. Even the bugs didn't bite them. They had such a beautiful sleep. Okay? Hashem came in the morning to give the Torah. Nobody was home. They were all sleeping. Hashem says, Madua Basi Ve'in Ish. Wherever I come, there's no man. Karasi, I'm calling Ve'inain and nobody's home. Hashem wanted to give the Torah. Nobody there. So because the Jews went to sleep the night before the Torah was given, so to rectify that, we stay up the night of Shavuot. So the Rebbe asked the question, the famous question of the Rebbe. The Jews were counting 49 days. They're so excited, they started counting 49 days. Can you imagine you're going on a trip, or your kids are going on a trip, and they're all excited, and they start counting down the days. The last night, what do you think? You're going to go to sleep? You're going to be too excited to stay up. Why did the Jews go to sleep? They should have been waiting up, anticipating the receiving of the Torah. So the Rebbe explains what their intention was very good, and therefore Hashem made sure they had a peaceful sleep. If they did something wrong, why did Hashem make them such a beautiful sleep? Nobody, the bugs didn't bother them, the mosquitoes didn't bite them. Why did Hashem do it? Because the Jews said like this, they had a reason for it. It was wrong, but there's a reason. They said, we're preparing ourselves 49 days to count the Omer and to come to get the Torah. We did 49 days. Each one of the 7 middays, the 7 emotional traits were each composed of 7. We did 49 days. They said, what else is there to do? They came upon a brainstorm. Let the neshama go to sleep. The neshama goes up to heaven. Neshama goes up to heaven when we sleep. The Gemara says sleep is the 60th of death. The neshama will go up to heaven, and that will be the final preparation, the spiritual preparation for Matan Torah. Why was that wrong? Because the whole accomplishment of Matan Torah was here on earth. Torah mitzvahs in the physical world. Before Matan Torah, the Avos kept, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov kept mitzvahs, but the world didn't become holy. The physical object they did in mitzvah didn't become holy. Because before Matan Torah, there's a decree. Heaven is heaven and earth is earth. Spiritual is spiritual, and physical is physical. So the whole Matan Torah is to accomplish neshama in a body, and therefore they went to sleep. The neshama should leave the body. So on their part, it was wrong. They meant well. You know what they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. They had great intentions, but the bottom line is that wasn't Hashem wanted the Matan Torah, and therefore there we stay up. And there's a lot more to talk about first, but I think we should go back to Tanya.